I have a second demonstration set up, and what we're going to look at is what happens when first, all of the existing connections in a connection pool are already in use, and second, when we're at the maximum pool size, what happens when more requests for connections come in. So let's take a look at what this program is doing. First of all, you need to know that I have the minimum pool size configured to 2 connections and the maximum pool size set at 4 connections. To start with, I have a method, and this just connects to the database and gets the connection pool initialized. Calling this method up front is really here just to make sure that the test is repeatable, and we don't have any effects from setting up the pool in later connections that we're going to make. I've put some delays in the program to make sure that the output's a little bit easier to read. So we're going to wait a few seconds, and then we're going to use Parallel Task Library to run this data access method I have called Run Time Consuming Operation. And if we scroll down, we can take a look at that. We see this method is just querying the session ID again, but I've also added a thread wait in here to tell this thread to go to sleep for 10 seconds while it has the connection open. If you aren't familiar with Parallel Task Library or the thread sleep command, don't worry. Just know that what this is doing is that I'm running 2 different data access routines in parallel, so on separate threads, and the sleep command is simulating these operations taking 10 seconds. So each time this method is called, it's going to get a connection from the pool, and then it's going to hold on to that connection for a little bit over 10 seconds. Let's go back up to the main body of the program now. We're then going to wait again to make things a little bit easier to read. And then we're going to run this time-consuming data access operation again on 2 additional threads. And since the first 2 operations from above have not finished yet, these 2 operations should result in the need to open up 2 new physical connections to the database. Then we're going to wait again, and this time we'll wait a little bit longer. And the reason why is I want to make sure that operations 3 and 4 that we just started get their connections and those operations get started, and one of the operations that I'm about to start, operations 5 or 6, doesn't slip in and grab one of the connections first. So at this point, we have 4 operations that are all running, and they'll all have connections checked out from the pool, so we'll be at our max pool size. Now I'm going to start 2 additional operations, operations number 5 and 6, and what we should see is that these 2 operations end up blocking as they're waiting for connections. So let's go ahead and run this program and see what we get. Alright, we're in PowerShell, so let's run this program. Those are the first 2 threads that were able to get connections out of the pool. These are the second 2 threads which had to open new physical connections, and now threads 5 and 6 are blocking. And now the first 2 threads have finished, so threads 5 and 6 were able to get connection. We see a little bit of delay there, and the program's finished. So let's go ahead and discuss these results. This program really acted just like we expected it to. The first 2 threads were able to get connections out of the connection pool, so they were able to get these connections almost instantly, only about 10 milliseconds, and then proceed on with their work. The second 2 threads requested connections from the pool, but no existing connections were available, so we see some delay there, and the cause of this delay is the need to open new physical connections to the Oracle database server. In this case, this was taking about 2 seconds. The real interesting part is when we get down to threads 5 and 6. At this point, we see that these threads block because there are no connections available and the pool is already at its maximum size. So each of these threads spent 4 seconds doing nothing but waiting for a connection to become available. There are a couple of lessons learned here. 1, you want to stay away from being anywhere close to the maximum pool size. Otherwise, you could end up having that blocking occur. But 2, make sure when you have a connection in your code, you're only holding the connection as long as you need to. You want to get your work done and get the connection returned back to the pool so another thread can make use of that connection and doesn't have to resort to opening more connections or waiting for a connection to come available.